Attention, all you sex fiends, sinners, degenerates, and deviants. If you're looking for a hot new sex toy, now is your chance. Sex toys don't care about what's in between your legs, and that's the sign of a true ally. Go to either BVibe or LaWand and use code SEXEDWITHTIM at checkout for 20% off your entire purchase. That's SEXEDWITHTIM for 20% off anything you buy from their websites. Check the show notes for more details. Once again, that's Sex Ed with Tim for 20% off both BVibe and LaWand products. Your next orgasm is on me. Mwah! The Sex Ed with Tim podcast is recorded on the traditional territory of many nations, including the Mississaugas of the Credit, the Anishinaabe, the Chippewa, the Haudenosaunee, and the Wendat peoples, and is now home to many diverse First Nations, Inuit, and Métis people. We acknowledge that Toronto is covered by Treaty 13, signed with the Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Williams Treaty, signed with multiple Mississaugas and Chippewa bands.
You're listening to Sex Ed with Tim.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Sex Ed with Tim podcast. I am your host, Tim. I'm a certified sex educator. I identify as a chaotic homosexual. And did you know that one time I had a passionate affair with my camp counselor? Some would say it was intense.
Aww.
Oh my God. Ugh, trash. But yes, we're going to be talking all about passion today. And if you did not hear that very gorgeous, beautiful laugh at the other end of the mic, that is none other than the one, the only Dr. Jessica O'Reilly.
Hey, welcoming me with the dad jokes. I love it.
That's kind of like where a lot of my guests are like, all right, time to peace out. This is the kind of show that you're running. Okay, bye.
You need to save the jokes for the end, right? So they don't go running.
Honestly, Dr. Jess, like for me, I like put jokes wherever I can, even in the bedroom. Like I was literally with a guy last night and he farted and I was like, did you just have chicken? Yum.
I love it. You got to keep laughing, right? Especially I think over the last 18 months.
Oh my God, yes. I'm just like, I feel like I'm losing sight of like what's making me passionate about anything right now because I just want to live. I want to travel. I want to see the world. I want to get fucked.
All of those things we've been held back from.
Yeah, right. I just like, I need an army of 5 men to just come into my room and come on my face and come on my chest. But oh my goodness. So Dr. Jess, thank you so much for coming on my humble little show. I'm so happy that you're here. So happy that we're connecting. For those of us who don't know who you are, who live under a literal rock, who is Dr. Jess?
I am a sexologist and relationship expert, and I mostly speak about sex with groups. So I'm not doing clinical one-on-one work. It's all traveling around and doing what we call brief interventions. So sort of like workshops and retreats. And right now I'm in Boston because it's Harvard Sex Week. So we've got a panel tonight at Harvard Sex Week with a really cool brand called Private Packs. So Private Packs is they basically entail hot and cold packs for the vulva. So the founder, Suzanne, she's actually from the Toronto area as well originally, but she's in Boston. I think the generation of the idea came post cancer treatment where she was in a lot of pain. And so she created these really cool hot and cool packs for post cycling, post spin class, post vigorous sex, postpartum, for people with endometriosis, just for people with PMS and pain during and around menstruation. So she's hosting this panel and I'll be there with my lube brand Astroglide talking about pelvic and sexual health.
Oh my God. Can you send some my way for my anal fissures right now? Because I am
You
hurt
know,
me.
I'm going to ask her if there are ones designed specifically for the anus. And it's a little bit harder because you've got the butt cheeks. So we'd have to think, she'd really have to think about the design of those. But I'm 100% going to
Yeah,
bring that up tonight.
because I just got into a very unfortunate accident with a massage therapist who used massage oil rather than lube, and I was like, yeah, I see
Oh,
you biting your
dear.
lip. Yeah, yeah, I
Mm-hmm.
know. I know. I get into such unfortunate misadventures. It's it's the life of me. Um,
The life
but
of Tim.
exactly right, the life and times of my unfortunate gay butt. But speaking of butts, we're not here to talk about my sex life right now. We're here to talk about the audience's sex life and what they're going to be passionate about. Because I feel like in the time of a pandemic, we're all like cooped up and we're all like trying to find some sort of spark back into our life. So first I want to ask you, you can answer this like in the most scientific way or the most woo-woo way that you can. What does it mean to be passionate? Like, what is passion?
That's a great question. I think it's a little bit subjective, but certainly passion is associated with excitement. It's associated with taking risks. It's associated with feeling motivated in a really, I want to say passionate way, but that you can't, as an English teacher, you can't really use the root word in the definition, but in a way that feels intense and motivating. And it's usually associated with pleasure. And so in relationships, when we talk about passion, oftentimes we talk about attraction and chemistry, but also just feeling excited to get close to the person, to get to know them, whether it be emotionally or physically or sexually or spiritually. And of course, we all kind of know that feeling of passion when you first meet someone or when you first come into contact with anything that excites you, right? Passion for a job, passion for a movement, passion for a cause, and of course, passion for people or even just one person. And your body becomes awash in all these feel good chemicals and hormones. So when we think about passion in relationships, we're often talking about these fluctuations, oftentimes drops in serotonin, these boosts in endorphins, these boosts in adrenaline, norepinephrine, and an increase in dopamine. And dopamine, of course, is that neurochemical associated with motivation, reward, and pleasure. So the body gets excited and it shows up in the body differently for everybody. But, common signs of passionate love involve, sweaty palms, your heart is racing, you're excited, you have more energy than usual, you don't feel you need to sleep, you feel very distracted and in tune with the thoughts surrounding this person, and ultimately, you just can't get enough of them.
Oh my God, I feel like you just described my daily anxiety attack.
Oh,
sweaty
no.
palms, sweaty palms, my heart's racing. Like, when I meet a guy that I really like, I don't know if I'm feeling passionate or if I'm feeling nervous.
That's a really great point because nerves and anxiety are, in fact, a part of passion and they're a part of attraction. They're a part of why, when you meet someone, it's so exciting. And so many of us find that there's this fine line or this difficulty differentiating between, am I feeling really good right now? Like, is this excitement a positive thing or is this excitement too much and overwhelming? And for many of us, that leads to, avoidance behaviors like not wanting to go on first dates, not wanting to pursue something new.
Oh my God, hello, you're talking to avoidant attachment over here. Thank you very much.
Well, it's interesting because I've been running into the same thing over the last year, where my anxiety levels have been higher. I would say I'm a fairly low anxiety person, and I can't tell if the anxiety is good anxiety or bad anxiety. And it's not like, we can immediately differentiate it. Again, that's subjective and I get to decide, like, does this feel good for me? Is it the right amount or is it too much? But certainly I think many of us fall into that camp where we want a certain amount of anxiety, but if it goes over the line, it's just too much. And so, when you go on first dates, you're meeting up with someone or you're hooking up, people will ask, like, how do I cut the awkwardness? How do I make this less anxiety provoking? And the first thing I'll say, first I want to know, how does anxiety show up in your body, right? Can you check in with your head? Are you tensing your jaw? Are you clenching your butt? Is your heart
Everything.
racing?
I'm
Yeah.
tense everywhere.
Are you not breathing properly? And that's something we can do to check in with ourselves to reduce anxiety, right? We can say, okay, if I stop clenching my jaw, if I take 4 slow, deep breaths, if I unclench my butt, if I do a quick body scan, oftentimes addressing the physiological sensations of anxiety can help to attenuate or assuage the emotional components of anxiety. But for some of us, we need more anxiety and risk than others. And so this is where we run into issues in relationships because our tolerance for risk is so different. And I often talk about the formula for passion in long-term relationships because that's where, passion becomes a problem is people say, oh, I no longer feel the same way. I'm not as excited anymore. It's boring. It's predictable. I don't feel the passion. And the reality is once you get to really know the person, that initial high of passionate love, which we also refer to as limerence, as I said, marked by those dopamine, adrenaline, norepinephrine spikes, inevitably that wears off. And you want it to wear off because as good as it feels, you can't exist in that state for very prolonged periods of time. And so when they do research around brain activations and passionate love, there's some research that suggests that when you're newly in love, the brain activations are the same as somebody who is heavily using cocaine every single day. So it feels really good, but you can only last in that high for so long. So this inevitable shift between limerence or passionate love and attachment or companionate love is going to happen. And over the pandemic, for many new relationships, it happened more quickly because we spent more time together. We were bubbled together. We lived together. I talked to somebody the other day. They moved in after 4 weeks and they were married a year later. Yeah. And so,
What?
Right. And here's the thing about passion. Passion is associated with novelty, the unknown, and risk. Right? And in long-term relationships, obviously the novelty wears off. The unknown becomes known. And we do things to reduce risks. And I think that's where we make the biggest mistake in relationships is, yes, of course, we don't want to live in a state of fear or a state of risk or with, high cortisol levels all the time. But we need to leave some space for risk, for fears, for discovery, for the unknown, and you can do this with simple things like spending time apart or trying things that feel scary or, in bed talking about fantasies, pushing your boundaries. If there's a fantasy that turns you off, why don't you explore perhaps why you're off put by it? If there's something that makes you uncomfortable, digging deeper into that means that you can take risk, hopefully in a safe, secure relationship, and you can have a balance of both stability, companionate love, and attachment, as well as opportunity for risk.
This sounds so dangerous. I'm gonna be honest, because it sounds like the mixture of back in my days of using cocaine and going to the casino. It's so much risk, and I get that high, and that it's that crash that sucks so much. When your cortisol and your adrenaline, your norepinephrine, everything just comes down, and it's just now I want more. And it's how do I manage that crash, that post-passionate hangover, I guess is the word?
Yeah, that's a great point. In relationships, let's say that happens at the 3-month mark or the 6-month mark or whatever it may be. That's when we start to lose interest. That's when we start to oftentimes look elsewhere. So, one way is to remain open to other relationships. There is no reason why we all have to be monogamous, right? And so in non-monogamous, consensually non-monogamous circles, we talk about, for example, new relationship energy. So that's definitely an option, is to be consensually non-monogamous. Now, does that solve all your passion issues? Of course not. I'm not suggesting that people in consensually non-monogamous relationships are always seeking someone new, but it is an option, and I always want to kind of lead people down the path that reminds them that you have all these different options. Not that one is better than another, but these options exist and they're all legitimate and they can all work out and they can all be healthy and they can all be fulfilling. For folks in monogamous relationships, trying to manage that crash, I think we have to, number one, accept that it may not feel the same as it did on your first, second, third, fourth, 10th date, but you can always get glimmers of that back. You can always do things that reinvigorate those passion chemicals. So to, again, get those chemicals spiking, you're probably going to want to do things that are new. that are a little bit scary, but not too scary, right? And this is where individual risk profiles come in. So for example, I'm a risk taker. I need a lot of risk. I get very bored very easily. My attention is very low. My partner Brandon requires more stability. That doesn't mean he doesn't like to take risks, but our risk profiles are a little bit different. So what that means is that we have to look for other sources of fulfilling our needs. And so I think this is where people make the number one mistake is they think that passion should occur forever naturally without effort. And then the second is they want to derive all of their emotional fulfillment and perhaps sexual from one relationship. And so you can be monogamous, but take small risks together. And then if one of you has a higher risk tolerance, take other types of risks. They don't have to be sexual in nature, right? So for example, I can just talk about myself. For me, my work is adrenaline pumping because I'm constantly running from place to place, hopping from plane to plane, getting up on stages where, every time you get up on stage, you can bomb. And that's sort of exciting in a frightening way. Now, I know for you, I see you making your face that might not feel good all the time.
I'm scared. My stage fright, my ass is clenched right now.
Well,
I am tight.
It's tight. It's interesting because you're a natural speaker, right? Like you host this podcast. It seems as though, and this may not be the case, but from the outside, it seems like these conversations and, being a performer and a host come naturally to you. But if you don't like that type of risk, like the getting up on stage, what's cool is you don't have to do it, right? And it's the same thing in relationships. My partner wouldn't want to be following me around everywhere all the time because the risk of like traveling in the airports and the missing of flights would be very stressful for him. Whereas for me, I actually feel more at ease with that. It has to do with the fact that we're not all neurotypical. Our brains don't all work in the same way. And so to kind of get back to where I kind of digress, but because I need more risk and I need more kind of excitement and change and novelty and short engagements that are exciting for me. So whether that's like a speech or an event or talking to people, I get those at work. Right? I don't say, hey, I'm bored in life, excite me. Sometimes when we say we're bored and we're not feeling passionate, we love to look at the relationship as the deficit point, when in fact there are other areas of our lives from which we can derive that passion and excitement. So why are we blaming the relationship? So if I need more excitement in life, maybe I get it from work. Maybe I get it from my friendships. Maybe I get it from sports or, other things that I do. It can't all be me turning to Brandon and saying, excite me, like this is boring, make my life more exciting. So that's really, to me, the second pitfall that I see. And that is people expecting a partner to fulfill all of their emotional, practical, physical, sexual, spiritual, whatever it may be, needs. When in fact, we've got this whole rich life. We've got the opportunity to expand our social circles again and do more of what we love. So don't put all your eggs in that basket of the relationship. Now, don't get me wrong. I mean, the relationship I have with Brandon is really the biggest part of my life and the most fulfilling and meaningful part of my life. But that doesn't mean that I get all my fulfillment there.
I'm so jealous of how y'all are so fucking cute on social media, by the way. I'm like, can you please ask Brandon to find me a house with a fuck dungeon? Because
he is just Brandon is just the best. He really is so easygoing. Like I posted a reel last week and I needed him to act out a part in it. And I just asked him to block the time. I sent him a calendar invite. He gets there. He's like, all right, what do you need me to do? Like kind of no questions asked, just so easygoing, so supportive. I'm so lucky that way. But when we think about passion, one of the challenges we run into is that when one partner gets more passion and excitement and risk from another area of life, oftentimes they expect the partner who perhaps doesn't, run around and maybe have to travel for work and whatnot, they expect that partner at home to offer all the stability. But then we get into this dynamic where that partner who has more stability in their life wants more passion in the relationship. And so we really have to have conversations around, what does passion feel like to you? What does it mean to you? Because you asked me my definition, what's your definition?
Oh, wow. That's interesting. I've never actually thought about what passion feels to me because To me, passion means I got a hard on for this guy. No, I'm kidding. I guess for me, passion is like when my brain is like lighting up in all these different areas, when I can't really stop thinking about this one thing or this one person. But also, the next thought that's coming up for me is that passionate or is that just infatuation? Because I don't want to be obsessed with something. Like my passion lies in my work as a sex educator. My passion lies in being a volunteer outreach for the LGBT community. So that's not something that I'm obsessed about, but I'm passionate about it. But also I get that same kind of high when I'm fixated on a person that's like the object of my affections. So for example, right now I'm kind of like talking to this guy and I feel like the passion level is mismatched and I kind of don't know how to handle it. I don't know how to be like, hey, I feel like I'm investing more in this relationship or in this connection than you are. And that feels so scary to bring up, It feels like, are we in this together or not? Like, feelings, I hate it.
It is scary. Relationships can feel scary.
Right, it's terrifying. So would one person be able to handle mismatched passion levels in any sort of connection or relationship?
I would say the first thing is actually talking about it, because when we talk about mismatched passion, are you talking about like interest or commitment?
Yeah, just like how I'm feeling like strongly more than my person, my date, my whatever. You know what I mean? I feel more invested in this than he's investing.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's okay to say that. I also think that it's important to talk about why do you think they're less invested? Because what you do to show your investment might be different than what they do to show theirs. So they may feel just as invested, but behaviorally they're not enacting behaviors that make you feel as though they're invested. So I think you can ask about, where are we in this relationship? Like how are you feeling? What is your level of interest and commitment? I mean, you don't have to make it so dry, but also if they say, let's say they land on the same page and you're both quite invested in making this work, then you have to have a conversation about what it feels like for you to know that they're invested. Like, what can they do to make you know they're invested? So that's one side, right? What is it you're asking of them? And then also, can you also be a little introspective and ask yourself, well, what am I expecting and why am I expecting it, right? Like, so how do I want to feel? What is it I think that I want them to do to help me feel that way? And just as importantly, what can I do to help myself feel that way? Because when we talk about, for example, attachment and, the attachment styles can be helpful. I think they're a nice starting point. Oftentimes they lack nuance and we don't consider all the systemic issues that affect attachment, right? Like attachment styles are often explained as rooted in childhood, when in fact even if we have a specific type of childhood, if we interact with the world in a way that affects us based on our race, our appearance, our gender identity, our sexual orientation, perceived income, all of these things can also affect the way we feel attached or not attached to other people. Like, it's not as simple as my mom did this and this is why I am. But if we think about, attachment styles, if you are feeling like anxiously attached or attached in a disorganized way, sometimes that can be affected by the way somebody's treating you. But sometimes it's also from our own internalized and personalized experience.
We'll be right back after this commercial break.
Yes!
What's up, all you sick fucking perverts? Don't you just love love? The Love Shop has everything you need to feel the love in the air, or in between your legs, wherever you want, really. They've got everything from vibrators, lubes, lingerie, and even full-sized sex dolls. Wow, I guess love really does come in all shapes and sizes. Visit loveshop.ca/sexedwithtim and use code SEXEDWithTim at checkout for 15% off the whole store. And the best part is that they ship all over Canada, US, and what? Ireland? To all my whores in Dublin, top of the morning to ya. That's loveshop.ca/sexedwithtim and check out code SEXEDWithTim for 15% off the entire store. Now get to fucking. Do you like feeling sexy and looking sexy? Of course you do. Only my listeners are sexy as fuck. I have partnered with fetishwear designer Dale Kuda to bring you the hottest deals on custom jock straps, harnesses, hats, and more. Head over to dalekuda.com, that's DALEKUDA.com, and use code SEXEDWithTim at checkout for 25% off the entire store. Yeah, you heard me, 25% off. And cherry on top, free shipping. Oh my god. I have a few of the stuff that he has made for me, and girl, I'm wearing it right now. I'm wearing like a little jock strap so that I could easily just like slip a little butt plug or dildo every now and then here and there, and I'm on the train. I'm just like, thank you, Dale. That's dalekuda.com with the code SEXEDWithTim for 25% off your entire purchase with free shipping. With a deal like that, I swear I could come buckets, honey.
The show is about to begin.
Yes.
Can I just blame my entire dating life because of some high school bully? That'd be so much easier.
Well, I don't know. I think I don't think we can dismiss that.
Oh God.
Right?
Oh my God.
I don't think we can entirely dismiss if you were subject to trauma, and especially if that trauma is related to a core part of your identity.
That's true. Yeah, it was a lot of homophobic bullying, and now it's like I kind of have to make up for being, the quiet gay kid. Now I gotta like put myself out there. That's why I'm, the center of a bukkake. No, I'm kidding. No, but I understand. It's like I don't want to boil down my entire dating experience because of something that happened when I was a kid, because I'm working that out in therapy. But it's just I have this deep inner discomfort when it comes to anything emotional or passionate towards another person, and I don't know where that comes from. I'm still trying to figure that out, to be quite honest.
Are you afraid to let them know that you feel passionate about them?
Yes, there are times when I feel like a little nervous, but okay, here's the thing with this specific connection. So he's a sex worker, he's an escort, and I was his client for at least 3 years. And over the time that we've gotten to know each other, 3 years that he's been that we've been escort to client, and then it was just in this year that we started to become friends. We started to become a little more intimate. And when I say intimate, like emotionally vulnerable. It was a change. Like we were in bed together after a session, and all of a sudden he started opening up to me about like childhood trauma, about family and all that stuff. And I was like, where is this coming from? So that's kind of where I'm like, feeling a little more, what is this? Are we a thing now? Or like this ever-changing relationship dynamic? So it is terrifying to have to tear down my walls a little bit, because like when we're together it's fun, there's so much fire, but when we're apart, all I can think about now is he okay, is he fine, is he fed? Right? I think that's just the Asian mother inside of me that's like, are you eating well, baby? So yeah, I'm just it's scary, Dr. Jess. It's just terrifying.
It sounds like that could be a hard transition too, from clients to friends to intimate partners,
Lovers,
to lovers. Yeah. And I mean, not that you weren't intimate as clients, but I would think that would be a different transition than most relationship transitions, because it's interesting though. I wonder if it's a very good foundation. I would think it might be a really good foundation for communication of boundaries, expectations, because in a client relationship, you're quite clear about what one offers and what the other offers and what that exchange looks like, which is a very beautiful thing.
It is. It was nice to have that specific exchange of like, here are my expectations, and this is the time that we're going to spend, and then that's it. Because I like structure. I like a lot of foundation. I'm not wearing any right now, but
dad joke.
Right?
Unless dads know what foundation are these days, I don't know. Like my dad wouldn't know what foundation is.
What is foundation? The strong underside of the house?
Something like that. Oh my God. So,
right.
So what I was thinking though is that you have those skills, those communication skills already in your relationship at the foundation, and can you parlay those into a conversation or multiple conversations about this new relationship form you're taking on?
I'm going to have to think about that, because it's just like the way our relationship has developed feels, it's not typical. Right? Like, when do you ever hear about clients and escorts slowly developing into an intimate relationship like this? A very deep connection. We're almost like lovers, right? And we've started calling each other babe. Mm-hmm. It's a little scary, but also exciting. And I guess that's what you were talking about, this passion, this feeling of passion, where it's like, it's new, it's risky, it's exciting, it's everything that you want and more. But
it's
also
the unknown.
Yeah.
The unknown is a big part of what drives passionate desire and passionate love, right? If you know everything about someone, that means that you know their flaws, because we're all human and flawed. But when we don't know something about someone and we like a lot of things about them, we naturally fill in the gaps with idealizations. So we either don't think about the things we don't know, or if we do need to think about the things we don't know, it's a subconscious, for many of us, idealization. Now, for other people, we can do the opposite, where we can villainize because we're, fearing something and avoidant of something. But I guess what you might want to think about is what are you afraid of? What's the fear here?
My fear is that we lose this connection. I actually unpacked this in therapy, where I find my sense of self-worth through the service of others, through being like a good friend. And if I lose this very deep and intimate connection, I feel like I'm worthless. I feel like I'm a shitty person. I know. How sad is that?
Well, I think it's real. And I think you also probably considered the flip side, all the things that make you a wonderful person.
Absolutely nothing. Zero. I am garbage.
Oh, no.
No. I'm actually pretty perfect.
I waver between perfection and self-loathing. Yeah. Do you suffer from high self-esteem? I think it's a great thing to suffer from for people who need it. Like,
I'm not as toxic as a narcissist, but I am just as self. I'm just trash. That's all I am. I'm garbage.
No.
I'm the good garbage that you recycle. So I leave less of a carbon footprint than most trashy men out there.
And we can reuse you.
Yeah.
I can put other things inside of you.
Oh my God. One too many times that has happened, where I have shoplifted things up my butt.
What if you shoplifted up your butt?
Oh gosh. Let's see. I have shoplifted groceries at one point. An entire Italian sausage, and that is not a double entendre.
Oh my gosh.
This was back in the day. It was a dare. I promise, and it's never going to happen again. I'm sorry to Food Basics. You can live. No, but going back to this connection that I have, it's like 4 years. that we've known each other, and we've been working together, slowly developing into this new relationship dynamic. I guess another one of my fears is, rather than the whole like self-worth thing, it's this loss of passion. I don't want him to lose interest in me. And I was recently listening to, I think it was episode 133 of your podcast where you talked about passion, and you had the passion interview with Brandon. So you brought up passion perils. What are like some of the things that can threaten a relationship in the realm of passion?
Well, boredom, repetition, closeness that is blinding, or I guess, I don't know if I maybe should say the opposite of blinding, but ultimately closeness where you want to know every little thing about the person. We hear people talk about like, oh, I could finish their sentences and I know everything they're thinking. And that's okay. I'm not criticizing those as standalone realities, but the more you know about a person, the less exciting they become oftentimes, because there's less to discover. And even if they're a very exciting person, we always want a little bit of mystery. And this isn't like going back to the 1950s housewife where she gets up early and puts on her makeup so, her husband doesn't see her without makeup. It's more about having your own interests, having your own perhaps social circles, your own passions outside of the relationship, so that when you come together, you have interesting conversations to uncover. You can approach conversations with curiosity. You can wonder how they're feeling, and that can create excitement. And so when you said, Tim, in the beginning that there's this fine line between positive anxiety and passion, you're absolutely right. Because if I wonder too much, it might, spark some insecurities. It might make me worry. It might lead to obsessive anxiety. But a little bit of wonder, and again, everybody's ideal dose is different, a little bit of wonder is what makes things exciting. And I think one of the problems we have in relationships is that we take our individual needs and we generalize them to everybody. We say, this is how much space we should have. This is how much time we should spend together. This is how much we should know about each other. No, that's too much time apart. And what we really need to add on to all of those statements is, for me. This is too much for me. That's not enough for me. But what happens is when something feels ideal for me, I expect my partner or partners to feel the same way, right?
Oh.
And we do that, with all people in the world as we judge other people's relationships. We say, well, for example, people will say to us, well, you have too much time apart. Like that can't be healthy. Okay, that might not be healthy for you. That may not work for you. But we've got something that works really, really well. After 20 years, like I'm madly in love. Life is exciting. I feel safe. I feel excited. Like we have our lots of things to keep us passionate with one another. I'm not suggesting that it feels like it did on our second date where you walk in and tear one another's clothes off, but it's still exciting. There's still new things for us to try after all this time. And so what works for me may not work for you, may not work for your neighbor, may not work for, our aunties. And so when we think about things that can quash passion, the degree to which they quash passion will vary from person to person. Like for me, I'm bored in a hot minute. Like I am bored so quickly. So I need change. And I've I think most of us, we've been doing more learning about ourselves over the last 18 months because, I was flattened at first when I was, we were ordered to stay home and I could no longer do my work and I could no longer travel. And I didn't realize how much I loved that everyday running and hopping on a plane. And yesterday I filmed 4 episodes of a show in a row. We ended at 4. I had to be on a plane at 6:30. I got held in customs for 55 minutes.
Oh, shit.
And now the customs part didn't feel good. But the rest of the day, the stress of that day felt so good for me, but might not feel good for you.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I can
That sounds terrifying. Like, I love traveling, but I hate the airport.
I
Truly.
know.
Ugh.
I especially hated it yesterday because, I don't know, my heart, when you're not even doing anything wrong, but your heart is pounding out of your chest.
Yes, every day right now.
Oh.
I'm terrified. And I mean, my heart is pounding because I'm speaking to you, because I'm a big fan, but also my heart is pounding because I'm thinking about this escort right now. I'm thinking I'm thinking about how he is. He just told me that he went to the hospital, and I'm like, oh my God, please, like, I just want to see you. I just want to, like, take care of you because I need to be with you. And I am kind of aware that that is a little unhealthy to, be to be fixated, to be obsessed with it. But also, I don't want to just disregard that as something that's part of who I am. It's like, I guess that is, while that is kind of obsessive and kind of like unhealthy, I also acknowledge that that is a part of me that is a very caretakery kind of identity. And I feel like, that's good, right?
Yes.
Being a
Is he
caretaker?
okay? You said he went to the hospital?
He's fine. He just got discharged. He's okay. But all I can think of now is I want to be there for you. I want to take care of you because we recently said to each other, I love you. And I don't know if it's in like a boyfriend's type of I love you, but he did say that he has so much love and affection for me. And I mirrored that right back at him. I was like, I do have all this love and affection for you, and I really deeply love you. In fact, we're going to be spending a weekend at a cabin together in the winter. So yeah, I know, sexy, right? Hopefully reignite some of that passion back again. But yeah, that's like all I can think of. It's because it's like my obsession and my identity as a caretaker, I feel like they're mixing, and it's very anxiety inducing. It's triggering. How do I like differentiate the toxic passion and the healthy passion?
Yeah, I mean, you have to trust yourself. First off, I'll say that it sounds like your reaction to his going to the hospital is very normal. That's someone you care about.
Okay, it's normal because I didn't know that it was normal.
I mean, I think so. I don't have the whole story. I'm getting bits and pieces here, but you care for him deeply. He cares for you deeply. You've expressed that. And so when he's not okay, it's normal to feel like you're not okay. Of course, right. We have to learn to differentiate our experiences and differentiate emotionally. But at the top of everything that matters is your overall well-being and safety. And so if you went to the hospital, obviously something was wrong, and you want to be there. And that you keep using the word obsessive. I don't know if it's obsessive because I've just heard a couple of minutes of the story, but being distracted by thoughts, having intrusive thoughts focused on someone you care deeply about, sounds like just a human experience to me, right? I mean, if Brandon was in the hospital right now, I probably wouldn't do the interview, right? I wouldn't be here. I'd probably be checking on him. I know that maybe it's harder for you because your relationship is undefined.
Yes. Because it's like, I don't know where we stand right now. I don't know, like, is this caring too much or is this caring too little?
Do you want to know where you stand?
I do. What do I do? Just ask him.
I mean, yes. I mean, it sounds like you have a lot of evidence that he cares for you too. I mean, and you don't have to say like what type of relationship is this or how do we define our relationship? Can you talk about like why he likes spending time with you or what this means, or even just ask about the transition? Like, you talk about the fact that, our relationship has changed so much over the last 3 years. How are you feeling about it?
Okay. I will, hearing those questions said back to me feel a little triggering, for lack of better words, but I'm going to sit with that feeling because I feel like that is necessary. And I feel like that's also necessary in a lot of like relationships that have gone through the long run as well, right? When you're, married for X amount of years and you feel like the passion is dying and all you can think about is your kids. All you can think about is what we're going to do for errands the next day. And is that like something that is that something that you considered when you built like your passion interview?
Well, we moved right away from you and back over to the passion interview.
Because I don't want to talk about myself.
I'm going to follow your lead.
This is not all about me, Dr. Jess. Even though I'm a narcissist.
Yeah. So, I mean, I want to say one quick thing. So you said like that question that I gave you is necessary. It's not necessary. You decide what's necessary and what works for you. But if you want to take it back to the passion interview. So yes. So when I created the passion interview, it was really in response to the fact that so many of us become entrenched in the mundane, right? And we know that the death of passion in relationships often occurs when conversation becomes reduced to your daily activities, right? So kids and family, work and business, and our schedules. And of course, we have to talk about those things, but it also can feel so good to talk about other things that are deeper, more exciting, more revealing, and allow you to continue learning about one another. And so this could be anything from like your daydreams to your childhood memories. And so what I did was I created this interview, and it really is just a bunch of prompts that you use to shift the conversation away from the mundane into something a little bit more meaningful. So these questions are quite varied, and they range from kind of whom do you admire in the world most and why, to when was the last time you felt really excited, to what is your fondest memory from your entire life, to, if you never had to work, how would you spend your ideal day? How do you want to retire? If you could have a drink with anyone in the world, whom would you choose and why? And we've got all of these different questions that you can use kind of one at a time, or you can use them on a date night. And the idea is just to get talking. And, for most people, one question leads to another, leads to another, leads to another, right? One of these could lead to conversation for days on end. And on our podcast, so my podcast is the Sex with Dr. Jess podcast, and my partner Brandon co-hosts it with me. We do this one together live. I actually can't even remember it now, Tim, and that's what's so cool though about a tool like this, is that the way we answered these questions, let's say a year or two ago on the podcast, might be entirely different than how we'd answer them today. And so,
that's true.
Yeah, like
because you're always changing.
Yeah, we can keep learning about ourselves, and to me, it also takes us away from the stressors of the world. Some of the questions, some of them might stress you out more. But, we're always so busy thinking about what's next. Where do I have to be? Whom do I have to see? What are my responsibilities? What do I have to do for work? Whereas if I can just say, okay, if I could have a drink with anyone in the world, whom would I choose and why? It almost sends me into kind of a fantasy land, a daydream land offers a sense of escapism.
Right. It's so sexy because it's like we are so focused on this aspect of our relationship that we do tend to forget that we're also individuals as well as being a partner. And I feel like it's so, I guess the word I'm looking for is kind of erotic when you ask these kinds of questions, like if you could have a drink with anyone in the world, dead or alive, who would it be? And you start to see them get lost in this dreamland. And that's where I notice someone being passionate about something, because it's like, oh, let me into your head. Is my head any good? It's so...
it's so intimate, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it.
And it takes you back to like that first question around what is passion? It's care. It's like an intense interest and care.
Yeah, it's this feeling of vulnerability, and there's also strength in that kind of vulnerability when you're sharing the space when you're sharing a space to vocalize your innermost thoughts and fears and your hopes and your dreams and even your fantasies. Oh my God.
Absolutely. And we have another interview called the Intimacy Interview, which is more focused on like vulnerable feelings and vulnerable reflections. I've got all these different prompts that I use in the retreats. And then, listen, they're not perfect. And some people are going to hate some of them. But the idea is just to get people talking. And if a question makes you uncomfortable, talking even about that. Because you don't have to answer these, right? Like one of them is, what do you regret most about your 20s? And then I think I have one, right? And so maybe you're not ready to answer that. And that's a fair response as well.
Mm-hmm. You can ask that question. It's like, what's making you so scared of answering that question? Mm-hmm. Oh my God. What do you like most about me? And what do you hate about me?
Oh dear. I don't have that one on there.
No. Why do you love me more than you love her? No, I'm kidding. How often do you think people should be having this passion interview? Whether it be in a first date or, I don't know, okay, let's go long-term relationship. 20 plus years. Should couples be having this passion interview daily, every week?
So I don't think you need to do the passion interview over and over again. I think like if you did it once a year, it might be interesting, or once every couple of years. But I do hope that every week you're having some meaningful conversation, right? Like I often talk about the relationship check-in. Like what are you feeling this week? What are you most looking forward to? Is there anything that you're struggling with? How can I support you? What are you most excited for? Just, and you can, I have a whole podcast on the relationship check-in as well, where I think Brandon and I do the relationship check-in, and we don't prepare for it. We don't edit it. We don't make notes or anything. We're just really having the conversation. And actually, I'll tell you, it's really useful for us, right? I'm always going around helping other people with their relationships, and I don't always take the time to do all the exercises, right? It would just be too much to do all of them. So when we sit down and do it over the podcast, it's a nice opportunity for us to just feel connected. And for me personally, it's a nice opportunity to feel a lot safer in my work because Brandon is there, right? I feel very exposed, very vulnerable, very honestly self-conscious in my work, just being in the public eye. You feel a lot of pressure. You piss a lot of people off. People are very free in telling you how much you piss them off or how much they hate you or whatever it may be. And I've always been a lone wolf. My brand has been me. I've been trying to move it away from that, but man, rebranding is hard.
Girl, let me tell you.
With Brandon at my side, it gives me the opportunity to be vulnerable, not just with him, because I really don't have a problem being honest and vulnerable with him, but to be vulnerable with our audience, with our community. And it feels good. Sometimes I regret it. I'll be honest. Like sometimes I never edit anything out. Like I never say, oh, I wish I didn't say that. In fact, I don't even listen to them. Ever. I don't listen to the replays.
Just post and be on with your life.
Yeah, because it is what it is, and it's a moment in time, and I'm a human being, and sometimes I say things off the cuff that, I might go back and say, you know what, I didn't really mean that, or I need to further reflect on that, or I was really wrong there. But it is kind of cool in the safety and presence of Brandon to be able to open up in a way that I never did in, say the first 8 or 9 years of my career.
So like you just build this relationship together to keep that passion alive for each other. This mystery.
There's lots of mystery, and we both have a lot of passion. Well, outside of just the relationship, right? We have other people we love and care for. We have our businesses are very exciting. We have different challenges we face. Some of them are together and some of them are separate. So there's always lots to talk about when we come back together. Having said that, we've spent the last 18 months together. And he's been joining me. Yeah, but I haven't been bored with him because we don't like talk all day or sit next to each other, right? We're doing our thing, we're working, we come back together. And since I started traveling again for work, he's been joining me. Like he's here with me in Boston today. He was in England with me a couple of days ago because I have all these extra airline points I haven't used over the pandemic.
If he's there right now, tell him I said hi.
He had to step out because he also had to take a call. Otherwise, I would have had him say hi to you too.
I would love for him to join you, and then we can have our own little kiki, the three of us.
Or you can have them all to yourself.
Ooh, hey. Hi, Brandon. If you ever hear this episode, mwah.
I'll send it to him.
Oh my God, that's so cute. And I want to wrap this up with just this grand final word of this keeping the mystery alive, keeping the passion alive. Do you have any tips for people who are in the midst of the flame is kind of dying down? How do we start to reignite? How do we keep it going in the long term like you and Brandon have done?
Yeah, I'd say, first of all, don't feel badly. Like it happens to every single person in every single relationship to some degree. And then secondly, just know that you can actually do things very easily to make things more exciting. So I like to begin with the roller coaster rule. And so when we think about roller coasters, what excites us about roller coasters is that they're very, very safe. They're inspected. They're safer than like the 401 or the Gardner Expressway or the I-95, wherever y'all are. And so that we know they're safe, but they feel risky. So you're flying through the air at 500 miles an hour. And the reason it's so exciting is that your old reptilian brain believes you're about to die. And so roller coasters offer this balance of very assured safety, but feelings of risk. So what you want to think about, perhaps in your relationship, is how do you build a foundation that is so loving and comforting and respectful and safe that you can do things that feel risky, but aren't actually risky, right? So we call it feigned risk. So first and foremost, you have to lay the foundation. So I don't want people to take away from this like, oh, I need to go do something scary, or we need to go put our relationship at risk, or we need to push our boundaries. First and foremost, you need to be in a space where you love, trust, honor, and comfort one another. So first we have to build that foundation. And let's say that's 80, 90, 95% of the relationship for most people. But then we create this space for risk. So risk might be listening to this podcast and talking about your response. Risk might be tuning into a webcam and watching like another couple having sex and maybe interacting with them a little, with the tips and with the chat. Risk might be for other people just going and shopping for sex toys. Risk might be going to a sex club and watching real life sex. Risk might be going to a nude beach. Risk might be simply doing something that physically challenges your bodies, like doing a hike that feels challenging, taking a workshop that makes you feel uncomfortable. Like maybe you think you're really bad at dancing and you go and take a salsa class. Like risk can be anything, and it doesn't have to be sexual. And in fact, you don't want all of your risks to be sexual. Even the passion interview can feel risky, like just breaking with the routine and shaking up the mundane.
So if I ever want to bring up risk with my guy, I'll just be like, hey, do you want to get fisted sometime?
Sure. Fisting could be, yeah. And again, fisting's really cool because it's not something you just do, right? Fisting you have to work up to. Like you have to train, you have to take your time, and that can be very exciting.
Yeah, you got to buy the Crisco and the
or just a really good silicone-based lube, please.
What a nice way to plug your Astroglide brand.
Astroglide Silicone X.
And speaking of plugs, can you please make like a butt and plug away anything that you want the audience to find, Dr. Jess?
Absolutely. So you can find me on all social media at Sex with Dr. Jess. Listen to the Sex with Dr. Jess podcast. And in Canada, you can catch me Friday nights at midnight on City TV on my new show, Intimately You. It is a shopping channel show, but on City TV, and we are hawking good vibes.
Yum. Oh my God. Thank you so much, Dr. Jess, for coming on my humble little show. You're so sexy, intelligent, amazing. You are everything and more. And to all the listeners that have made it this far, please don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. There's my Patreon on Apple Podcasts, on Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. So yeah, love you all. Thank you so much for joining here on Sex Ed with Tim. And with that, I bid you adieu, good night, and I will see you at the next one. Bye. Thanks for listening to the Sex Ed with Tim podcast. Sex Ed with Tim is created and produced by me, Tim Lagman. Music is Aces High by Kevin MacLeod. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at GaySlutClown and at Sex Ed with Tim. You can also like and follow me on the Sex Ed with Tim Facebook page. If you enjoyed the show, please rate, review, and subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Even better, you can also support the show on Patreon, where you can get early access to ad-free episodes and more. Thanks for all your support, you dirty little slut. Mwah.